Cody Stamann versus Askar. We got minus 380 on Stamann and plus 315 on the UFC newcomer and short notice replacement Askar. Let's start off with Askar, who's coming over from the LFA. He's coming in on super short notice. Ewell tested positive for COVID. Apparently, he had one positive test and then he had two negative tests. However, due to the UFC health protocol, no matter how many times you test positive afterwards, if you have a positive test, you have to quarantine for at least 10 days. With that said, the time frame just does not work out for Ewell. So unfortunately for him, he's going to have to step out. And in comes Askar, taking on Cody Stamann on super short notice. Now, initially, he looks like a guy that's long, lengthy, and can use his striking from the outside to really keep people at bay. And he does a pretty good job at doing so against certain opponents. But then I looked at his height, and he's only 5'7" with a 69.5-inch reach. Obviously, he's going to have a reach advantage here on Cody Stamann, roughly about 5 inches. But in terms of height, he's only an inch taller than Cody Stamann. If you go back and watch his fight against Derek Mandel, that was at LFA 50 in September of 2018. September of 2018. This Mandel guy comes from the same camp that Cody Stamann started his career off at, which was Michigan Top Team, and they almost have the same build, other than the fact that this Mandel guy is like 5'3" or 5'2", so much shorter, had a lot more distance to cover, and that's where we saw Askar really, show off his best game by keeping Mandel on the outside. Did get taken down once briefly at the beginning, but then after that was able to keep the fight on the feet for the most part and just pick apart Mandel with a beautiful jab, beautiful 1-2 down the middle, and really just keeping his distance and keeping him at bay. Then you go on and start to watch a couple more of his fights. His fight against Alberto Martinez. Funny that they named that guy Speedy, because he is everything but that once you actually start watching the fight. And he has very little lack of urgency, which is why we saw Askar go out there, take him down, and easily go to his back, and then eventually get in the rear naked choke. So good win for him there. He goes on to lose his next fight at HFC 42 against Karamanov in a fight where they just, for some reason, he seemed like a completely disrespected his opponent. Went in there throwing bombs. They just completely throwing down. Got hit a couple times and still didn't, fix his issues in terms of just keeping his hands up or at least keeping his shots tight and keeping his guard tight. And he paid for it. His opponent goes out there, knocks him out in 39 seconds. Absolutely crazy exchange and sequence there leading up to the finish, because Askar just seemed like he did not give a crap about what was coming back his way. I'm sure he learned his lessons from that. So roughly 8 months later, he comes back and fights Kevin Wirth in LFA 92. They're actually headlining that card, and he went out there and showed a complete MMA game. You could tell he took that loss very hard to Karamanov, and was very strict with his striking defense, still getting hit a little bit, still a little bit wild for my liking, but you can hear the entire fight, his coach just kept saying, keep it short, keep it small movements, or little movements, and that's exactly what he did. Like, all of his shots were tight, still getting hit every now and then, but this Wirth guy didn't really seem like he was at that level where he could take advantage of something like that. And then we also saw Askar go out there and implement his wrestling game, take this fight to the ground, control him as much as possible, doing some good things in those wrestling exchanges too, like kind of tying up or figure four-ing the legs of Wirth so he wasn't really able to move and get out of these bad positions. And then we saw just a slow and methodical breakdown of Kevin Wirth there with Askarov. I want to say Askarov, but it's Askar. We saw Askar just really go out there and just implement the game that he needed to do to get back onto the winning track. You could tell he was very relieved to get back into the win column. And luckily for him here, the UFC didn't really put too much stock into his knockout loss, because we know young fighters, they get caught up in being 9-0 going in against the guy. I'm not sure if there was any bad blood between him and his opponent, but he definitely learned his lesson there, and he came back with a much better game plan next time around against Kevin Wirth. He's 26 years old. He'll be 27 in August, so he still has a lot of time to grow. He's training out of Midwest Training Center, which is a training gym up there in the Chicago area. The only notable name that I really saw that came out there, a guy named Mike Lullo, who was in the UFC way back in the day. I think he only had like 1 or 2 fights. Clay Guida's brother, I think Clay Guida even spent a little bit of time there as well too, but nobody that really sticks out that currently trains at that gym. Yeah, this is a tough fight for him to come in on short notice against Cody Stamann. I mean, Cody Stamann, in my opinion, getting ready for a much tougher task, a much harder puncher, a much quicker puncher, a more explosive guy in Andre Ewell compared to Askar. Askar, who's a little bit more methodical with his striking again. Leaves himself open to be countered a lot. I feel like we'll see Cody Stamann go out there and easily be able to land on this guy, maybe even mix in a couple takedowns and just get his game going. I find it hard to see where Askar really beats him. So I completely understand the crazy odds here on Cody Stamann. I absolutely agree with him. I think he deserves to be a big favorite. Way too big of a step up for Askar here. I think we'll see Cody go out there, not really make too many mistakes, and just get this fight in the bag. I see him kind of grinding on Askar, taking him down when he needs to. He can absolutely outstrike him too. I don't think he'll have too much to worry about on the feet. I think Askar doesn't have the craziest amount of knockout power, so I think that Cody Stamann will have the durability to keep up with that. And again, 5-inch reach advantage. He was getting ready for a 10.5-inch reach advantage that Andre Ewell had against him. So I just really don't see what Askar brings to the table that will give Cody Stamann trouble. Cody's definitely seen guys like this in the past. And yeah, I feel like Askar has potential, but this is just too big of a step up for him too quickly, coming in again on short notice too. He beat Kevin Worth in October, so I'm sure he's been training and trying to stay ready for about 4 months now. But like stylistically, I think this is a horrible matchup for him. So I'll go with Stamann. I think he wipes the mat with him. Probably wins this fight via decision. Him getting a finish wouldn't be too surprising to me. However, we haven't really seen Cody Stamann be much of a finisher in the UFC. Maybe this is the type of guy that he needs to go out there and pull off a submission or a TKO of some sort. But I'll go with the decision. I think Cody wins this fight pretty much everywhere. Not much to worry about in terms of a threat, and in my opinion, deserving of that heavy price tag on him. So I think he's a solid parlay piece, a little bit chalky, people might say, but I wouldn't mind him as a parlay piece. And I think there's another heavy chalked favorite on this card that I think he could possibly be parlayed with and get decent returns on. So I'll go with Cody Stamann, and I think he wins this fight via decision.